some of your favorite content creators are just flat out wrong. There are a lot of amazing content creators in the Dead by Daylight community, and myself, I'm a fan. I'm a subscriber, but that doesn't mean I have to agree with everything they say. I'm about to say some things that may come off as mean-spirited, but I'm not here to call anyone out. I have 3 points I want to make, and you might not agree with me, and that's fine. The first point requires a little bit of a backstory. I was a variety streamer until about 3 months ago when I found a little game called Dead by Daylight. After playing for one stream, I was immediately hooked and decided to make the switch to exclusively Dead by Daylight content on this channel. The game itself to me was super interesting, but more important, the experience as a new player was extremely smooth. It had a nice interactive tutorial. I feel like everyone in my game was a similar skill level, and a new player's experience is extremely important for the growth of this game, which leads me to my first point. Don't touch MMR. So the most common argument I've heard for this is that my games are getting boring. It's always the same thing. I'm going up against the same killer with the same perks. And on the survivor side, it's the same thing as well, the meta builds. So their argument is loosen MMR, you'll have a combination of new players and veteran players, and that will make the games more interesting. And essentially, the newer players are just gonna have to tough it out and play a few sweaty matches until they get better at the game. While I agree, it would be boring to play the same type of matches over and over again, the new player experience has to be protected. If I went up against some crack nurse who slugged the entire team in one of my first games, I probably would have uninstalled the game right then and there. And I'd be off playing Power Wash Simulator or something like that instead of making this video. I mean, it makes sense that the higher level killers are getting matched up against higher level survivors. And I think a perfect example of why this works is another hobby of mine, chess. They give you an elo, and as you win games, it goes up, and as you lose games, it goes down. And kind of like Dead by Daylight, when I get into the higher rankings of chess, I can't try out some of the fun openings I wanted to try out. So then I start losing, and it brings me back down to an elo where I'm able to have fun with the game. We don't know what all goes into the back end of MMR and how that all plays out, but as long as you can move up but also move back down, I think there's no issue with this strict skill-based matchmaking. I guess one small thing that might be nice is if they actually publicly showed everyone's ranking, but either way, I think it works just fine. Topic number 2 is something that hits really close to home. As a content creator, I've invested a lot of my time into games where the dev teams really don't put any effort into the game. We're talking game-breaking metas that go unfixed for years. Partner programs where the requirements are so strict only 2 people had ever reached them. Dev teams with zero communication and zero connection to what the community wants. The whole 9 yards, I've seen it. There's notions that behavior is unmotivated or out of touch with the community or just money hungry. And here's my point number 2. Behavior as a dev team is actually kind of sick. Guys, look, I'm newer to the game. You watching this video right now probably has more experience than I do. And I bet you guys are gonna go to the comments and talk about all these different times where behavior messed up or they didn't listen, whatever it may be. I'm just saying, from my perspective, there's been a ton of new content since I started. So I've been a part of 2 major events, which were the Bone Chill event and the Haunted Grounds event. And these aren't like small events where they just take the map and add like Christmas decorations. The Haunted Grounds event had a whole new realm that you could go to. That like takes a lot of time to develop, I'm sure. When it comes to killers, I mean, I joined shortly after the Xenomorph release, but I got to see the release of Chucky. I got to see the re-release of Stranger Things, which gave us Demogorgon, which also brought 2 new survivors. We're about to get a 3rd new survivor. I mean, there's some games that once a year they'll introduce a new weapon, and it's just a carbon copy of another weapon that's already in the game. There's like new skins every other week, it seems like, which you can say is a cash grab, but there's a demand for that. I mean, right now I'm just focused on unlocking all the characters, but once I do, I'm definitely going to want to customize them a bit. I'm not saying you can't criticize the devs, but I just don't think it's fair to call them lazy or unmotivated. They seem extremely responsive to community feedback. Now, it might not be your feedback, but they have information on the back end that we don't see. And when behavior drops these new game modes they've been talking about, I'm pretty sure everyone's going to change their tone about the dev team. Okay, I'm done glazing. The last point is something I discovered after my very first Dead by Daylight stream. After my first stream, I immediately began to binge Dead by Daylight content. I'm talking beginner's guides, unedited gameplay, overpowered builds. I was watching videos on a new update that honestly I didn't even understand. And I got one feeling, and a feeling that actually made me switch over to Dead by Daylight, which brings me to my 3rd and final point. A lot of the top content creators are burned out. Burnout is real, and I've seen it everywhere. I've seen it at my job. I've seen it in content creators of other games. I myself myself have experienced Burnout plenty of times. A lot of these content creators have been playing Dead by Daylight every day for years, and it probably doesn't help that they've gotten so good at the game they're getting matched up against the best of the best. I think Dead by Daylight has something super unique that has brought us all to this game, but it also can be very repetitive. And for me, when I hear some of these creators talk, I don't hear them spitting facts. I just feel like they're burnt out. And the solution is simple. Support your Dead by Daylight content creators when they play a game outside of Dead by Daylight. A full-time DBD creator is essentially financially trapped to this game, especially when they lose 75% of their audience playing something else. I felt a lot of different types of emotions when I decided to make the switch to Dead by Daylight and lost about 90% of my community. Now I couldn't imagine how I would feel if my livelihood depended on it. So support your DBD content creators when they play other games, and hopefully that will relieve some of the stress. See, I told you this wasn't a hit piece against your favorite content creators. I'm just a random guy trying to throw his hat in the ring when it comes to some DBD hot takes. I'm probably not any more qualified than any of y'all. Out of all the videos I've made, this is probably the first one where I've actually been serious. So if you guys need something to cleanse the palate, you can watch this playlist of all my perk reviews.